I want to talk about the film industry, dude, because it's slimy, huh?
I think people make generalizations and they have biases. And I think that's why we're fucked right now, because people group people into categories and go, this person looks like this, and therefore this is an issue with that person. It's like, well, you have no idea who this person is, you know. And same with industry. Which industry is not flawed?
Can you give me an example?
No, I'm saying you're the one that said the industry is slimy. You know, I was going to say which industry isn't.
What I mean from that is almost every actor, actress you see, they're a little bit fucked. They're a little bit weird.
You've been to our gym, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, isn't anyone in there normal? And most of them want to be in the film business.
Do they? Do I know of the ones?
Everyone I know wants to be somehow involved in the entertainment business. Everyone thinks it's such a great
what?
thing.
Just to be famous?
Why do you think that TikTok, social media has blown up?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be a celebrity.
It's easy access to be a celebrity.
Exactly, but why?
Feels good, attention.
Yeah, significance. I'm significant. Someone liked me.
I have a question for you, Steve, because you were on a science fiction show called Andromeda, which ran for 5 seasons, I believe, from 2000 to 2005. And as an actor, you know, when people watch these sci-fi shows, one of the things I notice is, of course, everybody on these starships, they're all in good physical shape, and obviously there's a lot of demand on you as an actor to stay in shape, because you know you don't buy somebody being on a long space journey who's out of shape, right? So is that something that you've always had to, I mean, you're in good shape now still, so is that something that you just enjoy doing, or is that something that's just a constant thing that you have to keep up because you feel like you need to be in shape?
Well, I mean, aside from the business, if I didn't work out, I'd lose my mind. I mean, it is literally my happy pill. And the times I've ever got into, like, they say, you know, Sadhguru, basically, you know, he's a mystic, he's a guru. He says when people come to him and their kids are depressed or whatever, he just get them active. Half of depression goes away. You know, our bodies are designed to move. And sports and athletics were my first love. And if I wasn't, the film industry was not it. For me, I've been training since I can remember. My brother's 3.5 years older than me. He would make me do 2 hours of drilling when I was probably like 8 years old. And I had some springs back then. Like I trained too hard before I hit puberty. I messed up we would train on cement. You know, we would do sprints and jumps and all these things. And then I was deeply into basketball, and I remember being in my basement doing these basketball drills very, very early on. One of my things when you end up on a show and you have to stay in shape for the show, I'm like, beauty. Even if you have to learn how to fight. We had a choreographer. I had a guy that I would train with, who trained all the artists coming up from LA, actors. Initially, I was like, oh, this is great. I get to get free training. I get to get paid for it, you know, in the show. And what a dream. But then you realize when you're doing it for someone else, it's a lot of work. That's the interesting thing about the psychology of what we are and what we do. When you do something because you love it, you'll do anything, right? But as soon as someone pays you to do it, it's weird. You go, oh, I got to do that. But you were just doing that. That's something you've wanted to do, but I'm getting paid now. I'm not going to do that now. It's so bizarre. So it's
well, yeah, and not to mention that you have people critiquing you too. Right? That's the other thing. And you know, I was reading a little bit about your past, and you mentioned your love of working out, fitness, and sports, and all that sort of stuff. And is that where kinesiology came in? Is that why that seems like a natural progression? If you love the human body, if you love fitness, if you love all that sort of stuff, is that why you went into it?
Yeah. I mean, I started out with my initial thoughts on everything were when I realized I wasn't going to play professional basketball, and that happened probably about age 15. I realized
that's early, man.
Dude, we had this amazing. I hope I
still thought I was going to make the NBA when I was 17.
I think his name was Mike Baio. He was our coach in grade 9. Phenomenal basketball coach. He studied the Duke coaching system. We ended up winning the city. Our school was small. We didn't have all the talent, but we had a great coach, and we ended up winning the city.
You went to Windsor, right?
I'm from Windsor, and we would play against guys from Detroit and Michigan. We'd do tournaments, and they destroy us, but we held our own. And the following year, I got guys that were volunteers. Mike didn't. They didn't let. I don't know if they didn't let him coach or he couldn't coach juniors. They were already established coaches. And then the senior year, we ended up having our football coach coach the basketball program. And it was interesting was that I used to shoot 3-pointers, grade 8, grade 9, and then when you got these other coaches that didn't understand development, didn't understand individuality, they would go like, "Oh, you're not supposed to shoot from you're 15 years old, shoot from 10 feet." And all of a sudden, you got someone setting your limits. And, I went from doing windmill dunks to, basically.
You were windmilling?
I was doing these. I was doing.
No way.
Boom.
No way.
Right? Yeah. I can't see anymore, but I used to have like a bruise on my wrist from the rim. I wasn't.
Okay, so you were getting up. It wasn't.
I used to get up there. They're really good.
Okay.
And,
dude, back in the day, you gotta understand, no one was shooting three, fucking barely mid.
There was no 3-point shooting.
Barely.
Anyway, so basketball was my first love, which is interesting right now because moving from Windsor, I was a big Pistons fan, but I stopped watching basketball and I really got into football. And I've been probably a Detroit Lions fan. It was one of those childhood memories on Sunday afternoons of being disappointed. And the visceral emotion that I felt, the pain, and when you're going through school, that's fine. High school's fine. You don't really need a lot of time. Then you're going through university, and you're like, I need my Sundays to study. Okay, I'm gonna give myself 3 hours, and I'm thoroughly disappointed, and I'm devastated again. So then you don't study. It affected everything I did, which is it's interesting because I get emotional about all this stuff, and I go, oh, okay, well maybe that's the reason I'm in this film business. And dealing with, story and emotion and the human condition and all those things. But going back to
So why Detroit? That's
because I'm from Windsor. It's right across the bridge. The interesting thing about that area, as well as the loyalty, like that whole city it's got a certain kind of fan base, and also from where I'm from, Southern Ontario. You get what you get, man, and it's cool, and I love it.
Blue collared,
rough
around
just
the
really
edges.
nice. Good people and rough. If you got backstabbed, the person stabbing you in the back was going to get jumped. You know what I mean?
That's how it was.
Here out west, in our business now, in any business now, it seems to be a quality that people celebrate is being able to screw people over. Which, you were talking about earlier, is the film business is sleazy and awful, but politics is.
That's what I always hear, that it's sleazy and awful, and
but
I'm trying to understand why. Because you hear guys like DiCaprio, he's 50-something dating a 20-something-year-old.
Yeah.
Scandals coming out about Jonah Hill. You got guys getting Me Too, Dustin Hoffman getting Me Too'd from 35 years ago. You hear horror stories of Tom Cruise and Ben Stiller on set just being absolute nightmares, and I've heard that about Ben Stiller.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean,
what is it
I've never
about
worked with either of those guys personally, so I couldn't tell you. But it's a funny thing because. My theory is that it's opportunity that creates the monster. It's not the industry. By that, I mean, you're not going to be a monster if you're a PA. Okay. If you're a monster and you're a PA, production assistant, you're collecting garbage or delivering coffees or parking cars or doing whatever, and you're an asshole, you're fired. But as you get power, and if you were mistreated earlier and you don't have the sensibility or the core values to be a decent person, then the ego takes over, and as you get power, you get all these yes people, and either they're too afraid to tell you the truth, or they want to use you to leverage themselves up. So our industry can create that, but all these people that are being criticized, like Leo or some of the other people, it's opportunity. The people who are criticizing them, if they had the opportunity, they would probably do the same thing that Leo's doing.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I feel like it's a very easy thing to just blanket blame an entire industry.
Oh my God!
And I've met so many people where before they're even famous, it's their personality, and I think put in the right, like going to what you're saying here about opportunity, put them in the right situation under the correct circumstances. You'd be surprised what people do.
Well, I mean, I don't
or worse.
necessarily agree that absolute power corrupts absolutely, but pretty close. And I think a lot of this goes back to biology. We're a very old, ancient program that has recently gathered this consciousness, and if there's FOMO, fear of missing out. Well, the reason that's so strong is because we think that if we lose out on that or him or her or whatever, that there won't be another opportunity and therefore we will perish. But that's not the reality we're living in. But our old brain is still doing all this stuff. And it's like people aren't aware enough of themselves yet. Some are. Some people have, like that's what we call them, gurus or spiritual leaders or whatever. And they are aware of it, and they can connect the two things and learn how to operate this system from a more effective way. One of the things I love to practice is Stoicism, and that philosophy's been around for thousands of years. But it's like their major premise is the dichotomy of control, which is only focus on what you can control, which is essentially yourself and your inner voices. Externally, you got no say. But most people are so concerned about what other people are saying. And now it's like you can't even if you got control over yourself, they're still telling you whether or not you're going to work, whether or not you're right or wrong or this or that. It's like, to me, it's the irony of it is they're trying to create a situation where everyone is equal. Well, it's equal according to who's saying. Communism was like that. Socialism was like that. All animals, remember George Orwell's Animal Farm, all animals are equal. I don't know if you guys ever read this in school.
I heard about
except
it.
There's like pigs on a farm. All animals were equal, except some are more equal than others. And that's the nature of the human beast, is that we want, some people want that goodness. They want that equality. But what they don't realize is by censoring and by only taking things at a surface level, not going a little deeper into why the person's motivated to do what they're doing, we're becoming worse than the thing we're trying to solve. If I can make on this point, the reason that people have been able to be mistreated before is because they're dehumanized, right? You could be a segment of a population, you could be a political party, you could be a gender, you could be this, that. Soon as you become that villain and you're dehumanized, all sorts of atrocities can be brought upon you. And people are just going to go, oh yeah, no, that's not really human. We're doing that to each other right now. We're taking groups that are going, I'm not going to get into the politics of it or the wokeness of it, but people really got to understand that if you want equality, you can't take more to compensate for the past. You have to go, if that happened to me now, let's fix it. But is it happening? As soon as something is fixed, don't keep breaking it. Don't keep, if you're dealing with racism or inequality, don't become a racist. Don't mistreat someone based on a gender. Don't mistreat someone based on a belief. If you really want equality, let them be what they are. As long as they're not interfering in your life, that's great.
I hear you, but that just seems so out of reach, man. I feel like it's just one of those things that's we're never going to get there, at least in our life.
We're penduluming. We're going to go and it's going to go back and forth.
Do you think it's going to go back? I've had this talk.
The issue, and again, depending on what we're talking about, the back part of it right now is horrific because the middle normal, when I say normal, the people who I think that want the best for everybody, they're in the middle. The extremes are getting all the attention right now, and we're very simplistic in the sense that we'd rather latch on.
Who are the extremes, by the way, when you say extremes?
Depending, I'm not in any party you want to talk about. I don't care if you're like Canadian politics, NDP, liberal or conservative. You're going to have extremes. I don't care if you're American, you got Republican or Democrats. You're going to have extremes. There's people that are going to hijack the issue, and simplest things like literally taking care of each other will go out the window because you can have a special interest that's taking everything. And I don't disagree. People should be taken care of. But who is going to be flipping the bill? Right? People are against capitalism, but who's going to pay for this stuff? Like, who's going to pay for this stuff? Everyone wants equality. Everyone wants to be taken care of. Everyone thinks they have a right. Cool. What have you done to support your fellow person? I'm not talking about your group. I'm talking about people who are outside of your group. It's so simple. We can be good people when we get people around us that agree with us. But can you be a good person when someone disagrees? Like, where's your That's the thing. We have to find that commonality. I think everyone wants the same stuff, but we just got to see that they want the same stuff as us, and then we're not going to fight them anymore. There's an experiment. There's a football fans in the UK. They're big time. They're very passionate, right? They found that when say it was Manchester United and Liverpool,
yeah.
If a person was jogging, they said, look, talk about your team. They get passionate. They're talking about their team, and then they sit them down and they they're maybe at a cafe or a pub, and somebody goes running by in a Liverpool jersey that falls, is injured. They don't tend to help them, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah, if they're in a Manchester uniform, they do. So because their identity is that. Now, when they grab another group in, same idea, they're Manchester fans. They go, let's talk about football. Let's talk about the sport. Let's talk about how great it is. Let's talk about how it unifies everybody. Now they see someone in a football means soccer, jersey. It doesn't matter what team they're from.
Regardless of what team, and they go help.
They help them. It's literally almost equal. So what we have to do is find the commonality and not let the extremist hijack the human good, our humanity.
What do you see as a commonality with?
Well, we all want the same stuff.
Like
we all want love. We all want We all want connection.
I want a 10-car garage.
Well, that's not going to make you happy.
You don't think so?
Hell no. No.
I want to talk about that. Money. Money. Material.
When has money ever made anybody happy? I mean,
it's a weird, I don't know. People always say, "Oh, I'd rather sleep. I'd rather cry in my mansion than a basement." People always say that.
Well,
I'm just trying to figure it out too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see guys like with the whole FOMO thing, especially with social media. I see guys that are doing better, doing this, that by the age of 26, 27, 30, and I just think to myself, "Well, I'm not there yet. What am I doing? What am I not doing?" I never say what am I doing right now that's actually productive and I'm really pushing towards, but what am I not doing? What am I missing out on? I always think about that. And I just can't. I'm just not able to flip the perspective. I just can't.
because you're so locked in on you. That's the issue. Everyone's locked in on themselves. But
that's also human nature, like what you said.
Right, but that's why we have to start engaging our consciousness a little bit more and start pulling out a little bit more. When you're just locked in on yourself in comparison to someone that the only reality that you have of their life is what they show you, and you believe that, you're going to fall short. So the first thing is don't compare yourself to anybody else, which is almost impossible when you got this thing in your hand. Do you
think that's the downfall?
It's a tool. So water can give you life, and it's the only thing that'll give you life, but it can also drown you. So this is literally drowning people because it doesn't come with a user manual. Parents aren't aware enough or have enough energy to, or have enough discipline to say no because they love their kids and they want to give them what they want. But really, again, this is gonna I didn't even think we're gonna get in all this shit. Literally, that's the problem, is that we don't know how to live successfully, and then we have kids, and then the kids do the same thing, and now with this, all of a sudden they're exposed to shit that 30 years ago no one saw.
The whole meaning behind success is like a little skewed. It's changing as time goes by.
Success?
Yeah. The way people explain success. Like if you ask someone, what does success mean to you? What does it mean to be successful? A lot of people, dude, back in the day, I remember back in high school, I used to say, "Oh, I just want to be happy. I just want to have a simple life. I just want to be healthy, have a family around me, a few kids, and do what I love, and that would make me happy."
That is the best stuff.
But if you ask me now, it's accumulating and getting more and more. And
but
I'm a little grossed out by that.
But you know why? The way we learn. The way humans learn is exposure. You're being exposed all the time to that's the version.
Dude.
That's the version of success. Kids don't learn by words. They learn by observation. So you can't be in a pool of water and not get wet. And you're addicted to the dopamine. You're addicted to this. You're addicted to power. You're addicted to sex, money, blah, blah, blah. You're addicted. You're addicted to distraction. And you want what you think that is, but that thing that you think it is isn't. Because if it was, those people would be blissed out. They're not. They're horrible. They're scared they're always going to lose. Not all of them. I'm not going to say like all of them. I think Mr. Beast has it right. He gives back. He creates.
He makes so much goddamn money.
Oh, but do you know how much he spends and how much he gives away?
Yeah.
It's great. So you got these outliers. You got exceptional people. And again, I don't know him personally, but he seems to be doing it the right way. And then you got, I'm not going to say institutions that are supposed to be helping people, because you said, the film industry is sleazy. Well, I can tell you, the Boys Clubs of America, the some of the church people, some of the, whether you're a televangelist, or whether you're a New Age thinker or a motivational person, if that stuff worked, why aren't people going to their spiritual leader and feeling fulfilled? If I don't want to name names, but there's people like a Boys Club of America, I can say that because they're getting sued. Like they're getting sued. The people are sitting out of court for child abuse and pedophilia. There's so much going on, but they're supposed to be a good organization. So is that sleazy? Hell yeah. I mean, there's aspects because what we don't do is we don't really look at what we're doing. We don't really look at the person we're engaging with because there's signs there, man. There's signs that someone's creepy. There's signs that someone's in for it themselves. But even in my own personal business situation, I trusted people. I try to trust people. But part of that I can blame them, but the other part is my responsibility because part of that is laziness. Right? So I think the ultimate part of this equation is once you wake up, you got to realize you're responsible, and the only source of misery is you. And it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. I've been on sets where I'm dealing with I'm watching the best, well, not the best, but the most powerful actor in TV, and my interpretation of it and watching this person is, they look sad. And it's like, why are they sad?
I'm thinking of who the actor might be.
It's not the end result that makes you happy. It's being involved in the process.
Wait, why do they look sad? As they're doing the scene, you mean?
No, I could just watch. I observe people.
Yeah.
And again, it's just my interpretation of it. But I just also watch the way people around them treat them, and I go, there's no real connection there. So to me, that's there's something there, right? They might feel, powerful and bravado in the sense in the scene or whatever, but when they're off, if
you think a lot of celebrities are sad?
I don't know, but I don't know. That I don't know. It's like saying, are all males sad or are all females happy or all, whatever. And pick a gender, pick a fluid, I don't care. It's like that's the problem. You cannot generalize that. I'm talking about specifics. And so to the point of, all the money, all the power, all the celebrity doesn't make you happy. And you can be dirt poor and find a way to be happy because you're existing in the moment.
I want to give you an example of what you just said about this whole thing. I was talking to my friend about this, and this one celebrity really makes it hard for anyone to relate to him because it just really seems he is living the perfect life without any anxiety, worry, depression. Drake really...
You know him personally?
No.
Well, then how do you know?
I don't know what it is, man. I don't know.
I hope he is. That'd be great. I don't envy people that are happy. I'm glad for them.
Of course, he has his issues. Of course, he has his problems that he has to deal with, and he has sadness. He's probably sad right now. Who knows? But he really makes it tough for people to relate to him.
Why?
He's the one guy I don't know how he does it. He must have a great PR team around him. I don't know.
Oh, there's it's amazing.
Heavy lies the crown, though.
Right. Most people don't go past the facade, and with celebrities, I'm exactly the same way. Like unless I have to deal with someone in a very important way, even then I usually give people the benefit of the doubt because that's just the way I'm designed. And it's funny because people go, no, you're cynical. I'm not cynical. I'm a realist. But my primary emotion would be love, support, and all these things, in spite of all the crazy stuff that's going on politically and all the wars and all this. I still think that humans are capable of greatness.
Inherently good.
Yes, absolutely. The problem is we succumb to the beast. We succumb. By beast, I mean animal, not the devil. We succumb to that sort of thing, and we are not aware of it. It's the same thing as people know more about their phones than they do know about their nature. That they know, that they pay attention to in their own life. They'll have a feeling, and rather than go, oh, that I just spilled my coffee on my jeans. Why am I losing my mind? They don't go, why am I losing my mind? They just justify the anger or upset over or somebody parked in their spot or their kid, whatever. It's like not a life-threatening thing, but they react as if it's a life-threatening thing or it's the greatest atrocity in the world. Meanwhile, there's great atrocities happening because they don't spend the time to understand themselves. They don't spend the time to go, this is who I am. So once you figure out who I am, you can accept it. And then once you accept it, you can show everybody willingly, not just by accident, right? Because we say people are emotional wrecks and they're up and down and all those things.
How would you interpret it?
Or you can change it.
Yeah.
Once you understand what you're doing. So imagine you want to change a recipe, but you don't know what the ingredients are. It's like, what are my ingredients? And people, it's so much easier to point at someone else than look into yourself and go, oh, wow. Because when you look in, you got to look at your parents, you got to look at your situations, you got to take accountability. If we stick our head in the sand, we go, I don't know what's going on, then you're not responsible, but you ultimately you can get fucked and not like it.
I think I've learned, man, that a lot of people just take kindness for weakness these days, and maybe it's cynical. Is that real though?
Yeah, there's some people that obviously do that, but
most people.
I think the idea though, so we take it one step further. Are you kind for them or are you kind for you? If you're kind to get something, you're not really kind. Right? That term unconditional love, fuck that. There's always conditions. People go, oh, I will be with you forever until they don't like something you're doing. So how is it's like all these bullshit terms which do not allow the person to be responsible for reality. If we really look at it, people rather romance a relationship and romance a business situation than actually look at it for what it is. We need to make money, so we better make good business decisions. We want to have more positive moments than negative moments in this relationship. So let's work on those negative moments versus, oh, no, I should be getting this and you should be doing that and blah, 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 whatever. Doesn't matter what side, doesn't matter what orientation, it doesn't matter. Humans are exactly the same. It doesn't matter if male, female, 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 male, male, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everyone's still looking for it. They're not willing to look at it from a practical perspective because they're so emotional and they're so fluid or they're so whatever.
That's what it comes down to, emotional.
Yeah, but emotion, just like water, just like the phone, is a tool. It's something we experience. It isn't necessarily what we or who we are. It can be what we are. We can be emotional, but it isn't who we are. It isn't, oh, I'm angry. Hey, angry, how you doing? Good to meet you. I'm sad. Are you sad? It's just a state you're going through. You know
is that how you go by it now? Is that how you
now?
get through it?
Yeah, like I get stuck. Again, you are your environment. So if you're hanging out with people who are depressing and people that are, going through stuff, you can be meditating, you can be intentional, you can go, today I'm gonna put my love out there, I'm gonna do the best I can and try to be this person and fail, but you try again and again and again. It doesn't mean that if your group of people that are with you are constantly negative, constantly bringing you down or bringing themselves down, that you can always be uplifted. Sometimes that's why the gym is so good. You get that sweat, you get or cold plunges or deep breathing. It interrupts all the craziness up here and it resets things. So it's like finding out what your triggers are, finding out what some people take medications to deal with it. And there's other ways to deal with it, right? There's humor, there's music, there's all these different things that can shift your state. And either we go, I don't know, and we leave it at that, or we go, oh, I know, and now what are we going to do about it? Or we can go, yeah, I know, but I believe in romance or I believe in fantasy, so it should just happen to me. I can wish it, and it's going to come. It's like, no, dude, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. there's a great saying. He said, the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. Think about that. And it's like people want to be great actors. Let's go back to acting. People want to be great actors. Why? Or they don't want to be great actors. They want to be in the film industry. They want to be entertainers. They want to be celebrities. Nowadays, it's more about being a celebrity. Okay, why? So you want to be a celebrity? You want to do a podcast? You want to be on, what do you want? What do you want? Well, most people want to eventually work their way towards television and get a series. Even all these like Bachelor or Survivor or any of these shows. So many of these people are looking to get a television career, Big Brother. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for exposure. They get their numbers on their social media, and then their brand, and they can go ahead and sell things and whatever. But why do you want to be an actor? Why do you want to be in the film business? Especially most people want to be in front of the camera. Why?
What do most people tell you?
Well, no, I'm asking you. Why do you think?
To be famous.
Why?
Money. They like the attention.
What does that give them?
Validation.
Yeah, significance from others, and then what happens when they criticize you and they take it away? What happens to you?
You go into full-blown depression. And
yeah,
might even kill yourself.
Yeah. So you got to be careful where you give your power, but without that understanding that, especially now, we used to need the tribe to protect us, right? Now, that was for shelter, food, blah, blah, blah. The one thing that we still need that's outside the tribe is connection. I think we do need connection. This thing doesn't give us real connection. Going back to the acting thing, and like anything, when people go, they say, fuck, I've been a writer for 30 years, not gotten anything published. I've been an actor for 30 years, can't get a break, can't da-da-da-da-da. It's like, so why are you doing it? Because I love it. What do you love about it? So come back to that. What do you love about it? Do you actually understand what it means to be a professional at anything? It requires discipline. It requires drilling. It requires awareness. Why actors get paid so much and people that are successful at it get paid so much is because of the emotional cost to them. We trade emotional currency for dollars. And I had my first agent in LA, Bernie, I can't remember his last name. He said that the camera loves insanity and vulnerability. If you have that and you're willing to give it, it's a silk purse, meaning money, money, money. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. The people that we really fall for, if we talk about traditional acting, are the ones that are showing us themselves in that given situation. But in order to do that, you got to be comfortable with that. And you also have to make it look like you're not doing anything. In order to do that, you got to be working your ass off to know the material, to breathe the life into it, to, take the right pauses, to be brave enough to make decisions.
Method acting, all that.
Well, not necessarily. I don't know about method acting, but again, that's just one aspect of acting. But there is a craft, and I deal with I used to coach. I ended up my agent was send me a couple of people because I was trying to work a program for inclusion and opportunity up in Prince George for the community up there, indigenous community to get opportunity because I had an idea of bringing experienced people in and having them mentor and creating films. It kind of fell apart because the person that brought me in was a con man. So where I thought there was good, there wasn't. There was just him looking for opportunity. But what it ended up creating for me was this, what I had to do is refocus on what I do and how do I teach that? Because I'm relatively successful for living in Canada and still having a career and that I've supported my family with. So I had to explore like what are the things that I didn't like about what I was taught and what are the things that work for me. And so I created a system and ended up, my agent sent me a few people and they ended up actually working like a lot and very successfully. And then by word of mouth, I ended up, having full classes because I couldn't do one-on-ones anymore. But I was still working.
Do you ask your students why they want to become an actor?
Yes. Because that's where I was getting at. So sometimes my agent would be out scouting people and she'd be at the mall and, there'll be a good looking person. And then these days now it doesn't matter. Like looks really don't matter that much anymore. But I think
do you think that's a good thing?
No. I think that people want to be distracted.
Yeah.
We're not watching the TV or YouTube to be looking at ourselves. Although the people do create their things, but I'm actually not a person that cares about looking at myself. I like getting lost in a story. And all I care about is the story's told well. And yes, the accuracy. So this we're going all over the place here, but there's acting and there's reality. Acting is acting. We're not playing ourselves. So either you want to watch actors act, or you want to watch reality. And there's a big push of if you're not this or that, you shouldn't play those roles. It's like they're roles. They're not us. I'm acting. It's like the idea. Well, unless you've been a serial killer, you can't play Dahmer. So we can only have serial killers play Dahmer now? By that logic, right? Mm-hmm. It's bullshit.
Do you ever see actors have a little bit of themselves in the role, though?
Oh, well, that's the thing. It's like the essence of the person is always in the role, unless we go back to that, method. Daniel Day-Lewis was one of those guys that could.
Oh, dude,
he would
probably the best actor of our generation.
Yeah, he'd lose himself.
He was unbelievable,
and I think it comes at a great cause. That's when he would only do like one film every couple of years, or
he would get people on the set on Abe Lincoln to call him Mr. President, which is
which I don't think that
funny.
I don't think that he could do more than one film a year because of I think it takes such a toll. Because when you think about it, okay, we as humans, this is the part about that I like about acting, because if you really want to be involved in that process, you can't do it without really being involved in your life, in terms of my perspective. So you got to really get to understand human nature. You have to understand your emotional capacities. You got to understand that how did Mo get here? Or how did Alex get here? What brought you to this moment in time where you can be honest and authentic with me right now? All this stuff. And it creates this facade or persona that we call Mo, or that we call Alex, or that we call Steve. That's my persona. Now, a good artist or a good craftsperson can recreate that and come out completely as a different persona. But in order to do that, they have to change their core beliefs. Because in order to change their core beliefs, they have to understand what their core beliefs are. They got to know what their triggers are. They got to know all these different things. And so, as an actor, how the fuck do you do that? How do you... well, that is literally method. But do you, like, when someone's starting out, you're coming in for a few lines or a guest star or whatever, they're not going to stop production to allow you to go do whatever you got to do to get into the moment.
Get dialed in.
You got to get dialed in. So then there's another aspect of it where I go, okay, I develop a tool chest. This is my tool chest. In order to operate within this tool chest, I need to know me. I used to say to people when they first came in, it was just a thing I'd throw away: know who you are, accept who you are, share who you are. And then I left it. I just left it. And I'm thinking about going back into it, in terms of like coaching again and teaching, because it just keeps pulling me back. But that one phrase is, I think, where I want to dive. And literally with that one phrase, know who you are, accept who you are, share who you are, that's where everything is.
Know who you are, accept who you are, share who you are.
That's right.
Okay.
That's the foundation, I think, of, is like either you're standing in a canoe in the water, or you're standing on shore in solid ground. I think that's the solid ground. Most people operate in the canoe, and they, if they get lucky, I can balance it. But if you really want to spend the time, which most people, I don't want to do it, because sometimes you got to look at shit you don't want to look at. But the power of that is, especially as an artist and even as a human, is that, okay, that I can identify that awful feeling I'm having is based on a story I've told myself, which expresses itself in my behavior. Now, I can't change my behavior if I don't change that story. Where'd that story come from? It came from my environment, my parents, my whatever. So, okay, cool. That was a child absorbing things. I'm an adult now. So what do? Well, look at it. Don't judge it. Just look at it. It's the same thing when I say accept who you are. Good or bad, whatever that interpretation of good or bad is, just accept it. Let it all go. And then
that's the tough part to accept.
But that's like saying, listen, I want to sell oranges, but you're an apple. No, you're an orange. You're an orange. Or sorry, you're an apple. If you're an apple, you cannot sell an orange.
It's not on the
until
card.
You accept the fact that you're an apple. Now you can go plant some other seeds that are oranges, lemons, avocados. I don't care. But if you deny, like you go, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, blah blah blah, but you don't understand who you are. You can think this one thing until you've fully explored yourself, but the people around you going, you're crazy. That's not who you are.
Because other people can see it. And
Absolutely.
see that you're not that person that you're claiming to be.
Absolutely. And then I think at a subconscious level, we know we're not that person. So then there's this horrible loop of I'm a fraud, imposter syndrome.
I have that so bad.
That cognitive dissonance, man.
Exactly. So the thing then I think the way forward is, you can have these big bad moments, right? But the way forward, as far as I'm concerned, is, and it's very, very hard, is you don't focus on getting a gig. You don't focus on getting a paycheck. You focus on being a professional and enjoying the professional aspect of it, of spending the emotional energy to really explore and look at what's on the page. And I have I worked at, there's 4 steps that I would use. Sometimes I use 1 step, 3 step, whatever, it doesn't matter. Depends on the material. And I go, there's rules where I'm like, oh God, this is going to be so much work. But then when it clicks, you're like, that was easy. But it wasn't. And there's other stuff where you just phone it in.
What do you mean by click, though? When did it click? How did it?
It clicks after you've done it's like practicing jujitsu. It's a little awkward at first, and you want to do an arm bar, and you want to be able to do it in a fight. If you don't drill, you got to drill. It's like we have a natural thing of resistance to anything new. But if you realize you're going to have that resistance and that awful feeling that you have, that's just part of the process. Eventually, if you maintain the faith in process, it turns over. It becomes the new you, which, it's beautiful when you have 3 months or 6 months to prepare for a role,
Are you
do it
continuously looking at the character's past and trying to relive the character's past so it could become you? You know what I'm saying?
My process is I look at the story as a child. I imagine I'm a parent telling a story to a child. I read the story to myself in the sense of my imagination. And when a child is read a story, they're not actors. They're just open, right? They don't have a judgment. They just listen and they imagine, right? I mean, you haven't got kids, but
they picture things.
They
in
see
their head
it.
about
Yeah,
the
you
story.
see
They
it.
see it. Yeah.
So when a writer writes, not all of them write the same way, but if I was writing, it isn't just the words; it's visual for me. I see the story. So imagine I reverse engineer this thing, right? So what am I seeing? Like, what am I seeing? If you're only, the same thing, like, let's get back to the Mo thing, fixating on Mo versus somebody else. If I just fixate on my character in the scene, I don't see the scene. It's very important to see the scene, to see the world that this scene exists in. Then you can get all the nuances. Then you can see how the other characters react. You can see the relationships. You can see the whole thing. You can see whether it's black and white or color, or if it's in the 60s, or if it's in the future, or if it's, civil, whatever. You can look at it from a very objective perspective and purely for entertainment and joy. That's one of the most enjoyable parts. But what happens is, and what I found was, as soon as I get an audition, I'd lock up. I have to get this done. I have to get this done. I'm not open. I'm going to miss everything, right? So that's one of the things that I would suggest. Even in life, you got to look at the whole story. Take yourself out. Take yourself out of this solar system. Blah blah. We're nothing. It's not a big deal. We're just lucky to be here.
And that's a part of stoicism.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next step is a bunch of questions. That would help you get a tangible answer. So we go from the overview to a tangible answer. And even those answers can change. And then you've got your blocking, and let's talk about movement, breath, and behavior is just breath and movement, right? So if I'm agitated, as you saw me come in today because of a situation, that story, that energy came in with me. So I breathe and talk at a certain tempo. And that's the stuff that there's another phase to it when you're looking at the material. Well, what has happened beforehand? What is the lens got to see? What do I want the lens to see? Now we're starting.
So that's how you thought of it.
That's the way I do it. So that's the way I craft things. And as a director, that's how I essentially got into directing, because I started coaching people as actors, and I found that if I spent enough time with them, we could turn in some good work, and I could deprogram them, make them breathe and look and this and that. I had a kid playing. He was deaf and mute, but he saw what he thought was ghosts. And so he had one word he had blurred out. He was a very energetic. I think he was around 10 or 11 years old. And I had to get him to settle it in. So I just focused on his breath, and I focused on his vision. And I would, tell him, well, at this moment, when I'm doing this part of the dialogue, you're going to slowly scan, and all of a sudden you're going to see this thing over there, and you're going to have a sharp inhale. And then you look away. So whatever that is. That tells the lens, something's in there, man. That's terrifying this little kid. The kid doesn't even have to know anything, because I didn't want to bog him down with terror or horror. So I just did it physically. I just did the third step, which is the blocking step.
And however he exhales is the way he would exhale in any.
Yeah, and I can affect that by doing other things. Like
manipulated the way he thought about
I manipulated. Actually, what I manipulated was him not thinking about it and just breathing. Because if I got him to think about it, it was like all over the place. So sometimes I'd have to do that. And so sometimes for us, it's like you're going through something, you got anxiety, blah, blah. Take a few deep breaths. Focus on your breathing. It'll change your state. It'll get you to the right whatever. So when I'm directing something and I need someone in a different state, one that they're not used to, I can affect it physically. And one of the tricks, obviously, is to do like I would do jumping jacks or push-ups or whatever. And then I tell them to calm right down and just say the words. Now you get all this energy underneath, and they're just saying words. So that's blocking. That's a trick. That's like the third step. And the fourth step is letting it all go. So in order to get to the fourth step, you got to put in hours, man. But people want stardom. I want to be famous. I want to be whatever. I want to sell everything for what are they looking for? What they really want to do is feel that they're existing in something. And if you're not invested in whatever it is you're doing right now, and you're waiting for the next moment, your life's going. And they're like, that's why my life is empty. You could be freaking on an assembly line and you're fully invested. Your life is as good as someone who's building companies, if you're fully invested. But we're being told that you're only good if. Why believe that shit?
All the stuff, all the points that you touched on there, I really resonate with me, because once upon a time, I took some acting courses, and one of the biggest troubles that I had, other than just being prepared, knowing the material, that was fine. But I think I found it emotionally exhausting, because it was my first time. I had no experience, and I just found that at the end of that 3 or 4 hour session, I felt like I could sleep for a week. I was so exhausted, and I got caught up in the anxiety and the nervousness of having cameras in front of me and knowing my own material that I actually found, looking back now, I didn't understand why I wasn't good. I was terrible, but I was so, from a selfish perspective, I was so concerned with, I got to have these words, and only with what was going on with me, I wasn't focusing on what was happening in front of me. What did the scene need? What does my partner in front of me need?
You had a bad teacher.
And I didn't understand it. It wasn't clicking for me.
Yeah, you had a bad teacher.
What would you have told
Why would you know this stuff unless you were told this stuff? One of my first teachers, I'm not going to name names, but he fucked me so bad because he got in my head. My instincts were right. I could look at material back when, and that's why I said even earlier on, that's why I'm so passionate. It's like, that's just part of my imagination. I'm dyslexic as well, so I see things in pictures more so than words and things, which makes it really hard to write. But my imagination is so good that I can sink myself into something. And when I went to my first scene study class, when I first moved, one of my first, came to Vancouver, I was in a class with working actors, and they were laughing and clapping, and then the instructor goes, "Congratulations, it's going to take you 4 to 8 years to get back to this." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you're going to start thinking, you're going to start overanalyzing." So why would you do that to someone? Why not just nourish that good thing? Or if someone comes in and they're like what you're expressing to me, I would say, "Okay, well, let's just back up a little bit," and then I would explain to you how to approach the role, and I would simplify it. And if you get the wrong directions, you get lost for a long time. And there's people in this industry with maybe good intentions that have not done it themselves, instructing people how to do it. And it's my belief that just because something is popular right now, it doesn't mean that it's right. It just means that they've been persistent in their messaging. And there's like, you know, I read Uta Hagen, Meisner, Stanislavski, Stella Adler, and then all these different casting people that were my generation. And when you really, if you actually took responsibility for your situation, your career, you realize that they're just people with a perspective, not necessarily the truth. But people don't want to spend the time to ask themselves, what is this really? They would rather defer their power and responsibility to someone else. I had a horrible habit of, when I was auditioning early on, like, I don't know, within the first 5 years, I think, of my career. I had some success, but nothing really. I didn't understand what I was doing once that first teacher got into my head. And then I'd go get coaching with this one person, and I couldn't. It's like, oh, I gotta go coach with her. I gotta coach with her. I was unable to use my natural resources, which is my imagination. You know, my recall, my.
That's a big.
I gave it up. I give it up to someone else, and that's what people need to be taught in terms of actors. I'm gonna say people, that you're responsible for your own creative process. You can collaborate with someone. They can give you a unique perspective, but ultimately you got to know how to execute, you know, this thing. It's like, I can technically know what I'm doing, but am I willing to show you my vulnerability? And also there's the trap of vulnerability, which is really funny because, you know, if someone cries.
They hammer that home too. I just want to say, like, when I was in the acting class, that word would get used and repeated. Vulnerability. You got to be vulnerable. And as a new person going in, I'm like, I'm not sure I really understand what you're saying too. Yeah. And maybe I did have a bad teacher, but one of the things, and going back to stoicism too, and I think that I feel, for me, like back then as a young person in my early 20s too, I feel like the fact that I didn't understand myself.
That you're in your 20s.
No, I'm 41.
I'm kidding, man. That's a joke.
You can't tell.
But when I was in my early 20s, you know, I just felt like back then I clearly didn't understand myself. I didn't know how to be vulnerable because I was afraid of, you know, there's that whole thing of like afraid to show emotions as a man.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I'm sure you can get over that with the proper training, but I just felt going in cold. It didn't help that I didn't understand myself. I didn't have a lot of heartbreak in my life. I didn't have a lot of these things to pull from too.
Right. Yeah. So again, what's vulnerable mean? Vulnerable doesn't necessarily mean tragic. It just means open. I had, like, when I first started, I had these two musical theater. I think they're 15 and 16. I'm like, oh my God, there's not a hope in hell, because for television, musical theater is literally the hardest thing to break. But I, you know, through the process of filming, showing, bringing it down, letting them breathe, one of them became so freaking good. You just watched, and time went by so quickly. That's when you know a scene is good. You're just there. I had a casting director come in to do a session, and he's like, well, what's the scene about? I go, I have no idea, because I made the students bring in their own stuff. He goes, well, how do you know if it's right? I go, he's just gonna go, man, you know, and then we'll fix it as we go. I allow them to do their thing once they've got a process, and that's when you know a scene is good, because you forget it's a scene. But to get it there, it's effort. You know, but it's effort in the right way. I had a kid that, she was on The Whispers, the Spielberg show. She was like one of my first students, and she booked right away. And then she got a 5-episode arc on Spielberg show, and she plays this kid that's aliens are involved. She gets possessed by this alien. And she's supposed to scream, and it's this big explosion of energy, and she wouldn't scream, and they were going to replace her. So they brought her back to me, and I go, I think I can help her. And she's such a she's such a sweet kid, very sweet and funny, and so I was distracting her, talking about her cats, and then all of a sudden I went, rah, and she goes, ah, she screamed, and I go, and then she starts laughing. I go, are you okay? She goes, yeah. I go, what did you just do? She goes, I screamed. I go, don't do it again. So she screams again. I go, stop screaming. She started screaming. I go, can you do that on set? She goes, yeah.
Yeah. I felt the confidence going in her by you saying that. I could imagine.
Well, because because whatever reason, People go, I'm not good doing this. I will be, whatever their story is, this is the thing. And then, there's an exercise we would do, happy, angry, sad, where you go fully 10 to 10. You bring your emotions up. And it's just a way to paint a scene, either through rage or through joy. And you could be absolutely over the top with it. And then people will go, oh, I'm not good with this and I'm not good with that. Okay, well, fine. That's okay. Let's just go fully into happy. Let's go fully into rage, and let's go whatever it is. And the next thing you know, they're lost in this energy, and they're not judging it. And then I can shift it over, and then I go, there you go. It's just that you haven't practiced it. That's the issue. You're open to it. You're going to get there. And I really didn't think everyone could be. There's, you know what? Actually, given the right amount of time and the right amount of practice, I think people can pretty much do anything.
Talent's a little overrated, you think, hey?
Fuck. Confidence is number one. Especially in this business, you can learn, and if you practice, you can learn yourself if you really wanted to. And you can also study other people. You can create a Gauguin-esque sort of character that is badass, that can do it. Like, you can literally create another Avatar if you put the work in. But people don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. So I know this shit.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and you could fail. You could fall flat in your face. If you don't think of it as failing, if you just think of it as process, if you think about learning and creating or whatever, if you created something that doesn't work, that's great. You've created something. And as long as you're not so attached to it, you can look at it and go, what if I get curious about it?
Pick at it. Let's
get curious about it.
That's fine, yeah.
Right? And that's how innovation happens. That's how things are invented. But even beyond invention, there's innovation. And you can innovate yourself. If we're talking about, again, we're talking about acting. No matter what you do, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. You can be the best actor, you can be the best writer, you can be the best producer, you can be the best whatever. The business doesn't necessarily, it is one of those businesses, whereas if I was in finance and I applied certain steps, I could be very successful. If you're in this business and you apply the same sort of discipline, even if it's the right discipline,
be a canned or be...
Well, you may not ever even see the light of day of a set. And that's something that, it's like show business. The show is the art, right? It's something that you have to go, am I okay with just being involved in the art aspect of it?
Because the business might never happen.
Then you got community theater, you got... These days, everyone's got a camera. You can create your own little movies. You can do whatever you want.
So if a student came up to you, let's say 15, 16-year-old girl came up to you and said, I want to be the next Julia Roberts or Margot Robbie, or a boy comes up to you, I want to be the next Robert De Niro, what would you tell them? Honestly.
Well, I mean, my first question would be why?
I look up to them. I love their work. And
then I'd say, what about their work do you? I would ask a bunch of questions.
The emotion, the passion, the commitment they bring to every role, to every scene. I have a love. I have a burning.
Right. So you love their ability to express.
And I have a burning fuel and fire in me to express myself. And I've always been expressive. And I want to be able to do that, and I want to be famous, because that is a part of it.
Well, okay, let's remove the famous side. But if I give you a bunch of pages of words on it, I go ahead, express yourself. Show me.
Okay.
You have permission to show me, if that's what it is. So you got to figure out what they want, and if they really, really want it. And if someone really, really wants it, like I had a group, they just sent me this mom wanted to get her kid into acting, but the kid didn't want it. And I didn't want to do a one-on-one, so they were a group of 4. They never showed up on time. They never showed up with the work done. And I was like, it was the most painful. I did 4 weeks. After that, I said, I'm not going to do this anymore, because they didn't answer the question correctly. They didn't really want it. So if the person says, I wanted to, do you really? Like, actually, I thought about this the other day. What do you want? Okay, I want fame. I want to be on a series. I want a big feature film with so-and-so. Okay, so that's what you want, but what does that look like? What would you have to do in order to be in that moment? Are you willing to do those things, really? And whatever that is, some people think, you have to sell your soul. Other people think you got to suck you don't. What I'm talking about, are you willing to do the work?
And that's the problem, because most people, forget the film industry as a whole, Goals. You could say goals, period. Anyone who does goal setting, that's the problem. They have these high-level goals, but they don't break it down. Okay, well, how do I get there?
Exactly.
How do I start at the bottom? It's like, this is why it drives me crazy. New Year's resolutions. I want to lose 100 pounds. Well, how are you going to do that?
Yeah. We'll get into the gym for 1 minute.
But here's the thing. Would you agree that even those that do the work and do all that still most likely will never be the next De Niro or DiCaprio?
Right. They won't be. But what they'll do, if you look at it, it's like, for example, why do you go to the gym?
For my mental well-being, to look good and to stay in shape. And
so your overall,
ultimately to have energy to fucking go through my day.
Right. So why do people eat better or worse? So if you can find something other than the pose down in the mirror in the locker room, which everyone's doing, which drives me crazy. Holy fuck, why do people film themselves? So if you could just do it because it feels good, I think that if somebody wants to get into the film business and they want to, be an actor or a writer or something, and they mentor with someone or they study with someone or they study with themselves or they read the great books and they decide whether or not they actually are great, what about those things are good? Like, and I watch my kid watch a movie and I watch the emotions on her face, watching the emotions on their face. I'm going, cool. Okay, there's an exchange here of life. But in order to get that exchange of life, I understand what goes behind the scenes, right? So how does that benefit me as an individual if I want to be an actor? See, if I'm going to do this thing again, and which I am planning on doing it again in terms of coaching and teaching, I can't pull the trigger yet because I want to make sure that there's a value there beyond success on set. Because if success on set is the thing, it was driving me crazy. If people couldn't get an agent or they couldn't get a gig and they were like training with me or whatever, some did, a lot of them did. I felt responsible for it.
I felt like it was a reflection on you.
That's right. I had to shift and I don't want that. I don't want to take money but I also don't want to devalue my time, because I had some people that would bring their kids in and I'd spend 3 hours with them and they only charge me 1 hour, like give me 1 hour's worth. I'm like, I just spent 3 hours with your kid, and they got a screen test in LA now. I have a few people like that, and I go, I hate asking for, that's a big chunk of money, but anyone else would ask for it. So part of my sort of getting fully involved with it again is to get okay with people not being successful. Just like myself, I still struggle with, spending hours on something knowing that probably not going to get that gig for whatever reason. Not necessarily because I'm not the right fit, the right this, the right that, or whatever. It's just that you could literally remind the guy with the power or the girl with the power of someone they hate. They might love your stuff, but they hate what you represent. And if your happiness,
you can't depend
on that. So if people want to do the self-development part of it, the creative part of it, the discipline to know that,
and create confidence for their everyday life outside of
confidence.
The set.
Confidence isn't necessarily that you're going to do your, like you're going to do your best lift of the day, that you're going to hit all the emotional notes that you want. It's the confidence that you're going to apply yourself. That's the thing. I will apply myself. My intention is I will apply myself. I will, for these next 3 hours, I'm going to be focused, or 20 minutes, I'm going to look at this thing. And then that's where the success for me, if that's where your success is, if you're fully invested, and that's for me as a teacher or coach, director, whatever, if I get fully invested, then it's successful. The result,
regardless of boss lady or boss, yes or no. Yeah.
That's right. Regardless of this, if the public says,
or you didn't.
If the public says you're great, cool. If the public says you suck, cool. Like, which one am I going to believe?
This was all for me anyways. I mean, I did it.
You're not going to appeal to everybody. It's just a matter of, can you live with yourself? Like, can you, esteem? This is one of the biggest things that's missing right now is that parents don't teach their children how to do things for themselves, to be self-sufficient, which builds that confidence that I can be put in front of a situation and solve it. We want stuff. We want the lottery. But if you win the lottery, you fucking lose the lottery. If you get fame overnight, you burn out really hard. You go get on drugs or whatever because you don't have that balance that I was talking about before. So we got to teach people that process and self-reliance and self-discipline builds self-esteem. And if we had self-esteem, we wouldn't be affected so harshly by other people's opinions, which are just other people's opinions. They're not true or false. You can praise me, it doesn't mean anything. You can say I suck, it doesn't mean anything. That's ultimate power. You know, we would love the ones that we love to think highly of us, but reality is, even in that situation, most violence is done by people who are people you know. 70%, if I'm not, I don't know if that's an accurate stat, but it's around 70% of all violence is done on people you know, by people you know, relations, or not strangers. Or we're so scared of groups and this and that. What really, like, there's this possibility that the people around you, and the thing is, you think about that in a sort of verbal or sort of environmental sense. You know, you're in a household, if the parent hasn't developed themselves, and they're frustrated, and they're not living the life that they wanted to live, guess who suffers besides them? Their children.
I know all about that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most people know about that.
Obviously, you've been in the industry for a long time now, more than 20 years. Do you feel that you're at the point now practicing stoicism, obviously being more mature, knowing the industry ins and outs? Do you feel like, as far as your craft is concerned, when you're in a scene working with whoever's there, do you feel that when that person isn't giving you enough, or it doesn't feel like maybe they're not fully present, they're not being generous enough? There's that word generosity that actors always talk about that in the scene. It's very important. Do you feel like you're at the point now where you can kind of let go and say, okay, I did a good job, I gave it my all, I'm not going to let this other person kind of take me down a notch?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you don't know what you're going to get. You get a mixed bag, right? Some people like to rehearse. Some people are generous. Some people wait for you to stop talking and say their lines. You know, everyone's different. And one of the things that I've had to learn. It's not about me. You know, how they treat me isn't about me. It's about themselves, right? So what can I control? I can control how I behave and how I interpret things. And if I prepare myself, I have a much better chance of being successful on that set. I can't remember who I was listening to, but a great actor. And, it was Jeff Daniels, because I'm a Detroit Lions fan. He lives in Michigan.
Love Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, he's on a show called Iron, what's the one about Cleveland, the steel industry, Rust, American Rust. He's got, like, what a range. I'm talking about, like, from extreme goofy comedy to real drama.
Greatest comedy
and
ever.
of great intellect. And he was talking about working with De Niro or Streep or whoever, like fill in the blank, even Jim Carrey. Because Jim Carrey would just come in and I just react to what he was, and I had to be okay with that, which is great. What a great thing to bounce off of, right? But he says the same thing. Is like, I even wrote it down as like, when somebody says something profound, even though I know it's true, it's nice to hear it from them. It's like, my preparation is the thing that gives me the confidence, and I can just sit in there. So if you do your job, it doesn't matter what they're going to do. You're able to do it regardless.
What does it mean to prepare, though, in Jeff
Do your
Daniels?
lines, make your choices.
Right.
Like, make a choice. I have nothing against directors, but say to be like, I think it was Julia Roberts said, you got to make your choices so strong that you're director proof. However you want to interpret that. But preparation is the key. And, it's much easier when you've got the gig and you're getting paid. But even then, I find that it's so funny because the acting joke is, a guy goes 10 years training, studying all these classes, working multiple jobs, finally gets a gig, calls his wife up and says, honey, I just got a gig. And she goes, oh, congratulations. And the best news, I don't work tomorrow. So it's like, as soon as they get on a set or they get a gig, they don't want to be on the set or a gig. Every actor wants to get off of a set. It's not every, I shouldn't say every, but that's a sort of common thing. It's like the opposite of what we have. I don't know why that is. It's like, we want to do it, we get paid, then we're like, okay, hey, wait a minute, you gotta be good with my time. And it's one of those things that it's like, you gotta get right with all of it. Psychology is a key thing. Remove the ego if you can. Really just.
I didn't know there was
there's so many
levels
tricks.
to this.
There's tricks like I've talked to directors, for example. They'll, depending on if a director is a studio director, like if he's doing a feature, a lot of power. If they're a TV director, not much power. And a lot of them will just go sure. Some of them that are passionate will go sure, but they're creative enough to get their wants in and still say yes, even though it's the opposite. They just say yes, work their way in, and then get the shots that they want.
Yeah, I've heard of directors doing that. That's very
Actors do the same
tricky
thing.
to do. Very tricky to do.
Yeah.
And when you said preparation, obviously that's really important. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when an acting coach tells you when you're going to go into the scene, but you got to be prepared, and you also have to know that you always have to have a beginning, middle, and an end. What does that mean to you? A beginning, middle, and an end?
Who tells you this?
My acting coach.
Well, I mean, if I'm looking at it, yeah, you walk into a scene, you have your life. The character has a life, right? I walk into this studio, I've got my life. I'm bringing me in. The issue with a lot of actors is, okay, so you get a scene and you're not given a lot of information. Sometimes you're given a script. What we have to do is fill in the energy of the moment before, so that when the camera rolls, say it's you and me working, and I don't know you from Adam, you're just reading the sides with me, I have to create some sort of emotional connection between us, and whatever that is. I could be pissed off at you based on story, or I could just choose to be pissed off at you. I could be elated to see you. Obviously, it's good to work with what the context of the scene is. So that's the start of it. A lot of times they're asking for things that the writer isn't providing. I love it when an acting coach or an actor who's never worked is telling the students how to do script analysis, and they've never really written anything. And when you've written something, you realize, yes, there's traditional structure to storytelling, which is beginning, middle, and end. The intro, the meat of it, and then the conclusion, right? Conflict conclusion. Well, people don't always write that way. So to do a blanket statement, beginning, middle, and end, I say bring life in, deal with what's in front of you, and exit the scene. So I guess beginning, middle, or end. If the person cannot explain the scene to you, I would be very specific as to the scene. Not every scene is written that way, because some scenes are like, hey, do you want me to park your car? Oh, you got it yourself? Cool. Where's the beginning, middle, and end of that?
Well, that's the thing that I always.
Right, it depends.
I was always fighting the not fighting, but literally. But when I was talking to the acting coach, because she could see that I was struggling, and sometimes we'd be doing things just as simple.
Can you name
as
names?
But I forgot her name. But anyways, something as simple as like, okay, this is just like a real simple part for some commercial for some food product, whatever.
Yep.
And I just, from my perspective, I was thinking, look, this is just, there's not a lot of dialogue. There's not a lot of nuance to the scene. And I just feel like this was overthinking it. Beginning, middle, end. Sometimes I feel like I just need to come in here with confidence and just say the words. Why are we complicating it more than it needs to be complicated?
Yes.
Is that a thing?
Oh, fuck. I had this one guy, I barely worked I had this one guy, again, I won't name names, but I was with him for 2 years. And I was working prior to going into his class. I actually helped him set up his class. And he's always, a lot of these guys want to create a hook or a special, you're special because moment. And what it does is it takes you out of the fucking scene. You're like I said before, use your imagination, look at the scene, I got a bunch of these questions you can ask to develop the character, block it out, and let it go. And if you Alice, can just show up and tell the truth of the scene, guess what's unique about it? Your DNA. Your perspective on life. So that's the first thing. Once you get good at that, then you can start painting it with Mo's brush. I know Mo, I know how Mo behaves. I'm going to start thinking like Mo, and I'm going to do the scene like Mo. Okay, cool. Like a director's going to say, listen, I know it seems like you're happy about this, but really you found out that she just fucked your best friend. But now you still got to be happy about it, but you got this knowledge. Yeah. That's going to be painted with a slightly different brush, and people are going to go, something's going on here, versus just words. Sometimes just words are just fine. I remember I was doing this one movie, everyone was overacting, and there's some names in it. And I was one of my first lead roles, and I was like, oh, fuck, I'm out of my element. So I did nothing. I tried to just be grounded and do nothing. And this one guy who at the time was just off the cusp of being an A-list actor sends his assistant over and says, so-and-so wants to meet you. And I'm like, oh, God. And he was drinking on set. And I was like, oh, shit. I was trying to avoid him. And we were playing opposite sides in terms of he was a bad cop, I was a good cop. But he had some very nice things to say. He goes, It's just us as a bunch of idiots running around, and you're just there and you're present. And I got to surround myself with good, grounded people and that are building. And I'm like, cool. He goes, I got this. I want to introduce you to my manager. I'm doing this film in Ireland, and I want you on the project. But he was drunk. So, but it was nice. It was a moment of truth for him, but it never followed through with it because, he's not thinking about me. He's thinking about what's good for him and whatever. But it was the fact that I did not succumb to everyone else's overacting, which is a bad thing sometimes, because then you're the outlier. You're the one that's kind of stands out. You don't want to stand out in a film. You don't want to stand out in a scene. You just want to become part of this thing. Because if you are seen as anything other than part of this thing, they're noticing you and they're out of the scene. It comes down, it's a funny word, truth. How do you get there? How do you get to the truth? I don't know. I really don't know. Because your truth is going to be, your version of a process is going to be different to my version of a process. But one of the things I used to believe that we didn't need process. Now, based on my experiences, it really does help to set a direction, to set a beginning, middle, and end. So it gives you something to launch towards. Part of the courage that's necessary is to be in it, and then all of a sudden, either you forget your lines or the person throws something else at you, that you're so present that those are sometimes the most truthful moments, and you allow that stuff to happen, and you don't freak out, but that all comes with acceptance and training. You got to kind of go through it, and a lot of people don't believe something till they see it. So it's like, okay, well, let's watch, let's see what you did, let's see what do you think as an audience member, Mo? What do you think of your performance as an audience member? Not as Mo picking on Mo. If you were, and this is where it gets fun. You get to role play. You get to be the director. You get to be the writer. You get to, have respect for every aspect of storytelling. But, a genre, a pacing, a color palette, a musical theme, all affect us at a cellular level. As an artist, you want to know as best you can how to do those things. And when you're making a film, like we were talking about before, I've been involved in writing and music and all, and I don't know anything about a lot of that stuff, but I know what it feels like. And so until it feels right, until I find that balance, it's not the thing. I remember the first one. I had a piano key clicking in my head, and I put the piano key in. It became part of the fabric of the movie, and it's so good. I mean, in terms of, for me, emotionally, it's a thing that I needed. And it I don't know why, but it was one of those things. But I had enough experience to know that it was something that was necessary, if that makes any sense.
It does. This is going to take a while to unpack because there's so many words of wisdom there and truth what you said in the last 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm going to let Mo have the last word. But can you tell us maybe a little bit about your short film, the first one that you made? Because obviously, going back to creating art, you obviously enjoy that process, not just being in it, but actually being involved with it.
Well, I've done shorts, but the one that I sent you guys a trailer for was, it's actually on Tubi. It's a feature-length film called Alter. And whether or not show a trailer doesn't matter. And then there's also on Tubi and Roku and Vizio is a film, one of the first films that I invested in. It's called A Haunting at Silver Falls. I made it, but I executive produced it, meaning financed half of it. And that actually is interesting because that production we went through some lawsuits. It should have been a very successful deal. And 15 years ago, it was Redbox. I think it was VHS still. There wasn't streaming. Once COVID happened, all of a sudden that film got a second life, and I started getting some money because streaming. They were looking for streaming content because COVID was happening. There was no content. Then the strike, and so now I'm actually getting more money. So I'm still not in the black yet. I'm still in the red, but because of that streaming, it's got a new life. So if you want to check out, it's called A Haunting at Silver Falls. And again, Tubi, Roku, or Vizio. And then mine is on Tubi, but they told me they're going to be on a bunch of different platforms. But Tubi's where to find Alter, Alter.
That's perfect. We'll make sure we link to that so people can see it.
And we can.
I was going to say, if people are interested in terms of, because now thanks, again, because of COVID, people don't have to be in the room with me anymore for coaching and that sort of thing, which I love. Could be anywhere in the world. if they're interested, they can email me. I'm not doing classes. I'm not doing anything right now. I'm actually mentoring a couple of people, but that's almost more like management. They can email me at theactorsgym@gmail.com. That's ACTORZ Gym GYM @gmail.com.
Thanks, dude. I know we could go on in like another 2 hours.
I told you this would be 2 episodes. I was gonna bring you a change of clothes. We can do it later.
Let's do it again, man.
Yeah. This was a lot. See, again, it's a tone, right? So you come in with some heaviness. I wasn't expecting this tone, but I came in with what it was, whatever was
That's
real
fine.
for me.
I mean,
yeah, no, which is fine.
it's fine. I mean, you got
Dealing with life, and I'm gonna paint like that. Would actually, the thing when people go, well, I gotta do a happy scene, and but you just found out your dog died. It's like
you gotta
sadness would be a beautiful thing in the smile. You know what I mean? And that little glisten of the eye. It's so powerful.
You can weave that into any scene.
Absolutely, and not being afraid of it.
Whoa.
People will go, what was that? They'll be like, what was that? I remember I auditioned for a drama, but I saw the character. I dove deep into the character. It was one of my first times down in LA. And the writers there's a husband and wife team. And I made them laugh almost through the whole thing. And I wasn't trying to be funny, but the situation in my mind for the character was funny. You just couldn't catch a break. But it was drama. And then I ended up when I first auditioned, I ended up with a screen test, and the show didn't go. They just didn't get picked up. But it was one of those things where you go. What it taught me was, if you dive deep into your choice, no choice is wrong. Just
commit to it.
Yeah.
Be who you are.
Absolutely.
Episode 78. Enjoy your 24. Steve Bacic.
Bacic. Ba.
Ba.
Cheech.
Ba. Dude, I grew up with Eastern Europeans.
I know, but.